Russia, Russia, Russia. Russia, Russia, Russia. Russia, Russia, Russia.
All right, so this is Russia, but also Africa. We don't exactly have an Africa jingle, maybe something the producers can put together, an Afrofuturism type of thing here, but it's a topic we've been talking about for a while, and it's come to the forefront here, so I thought I'd bring it to the show. And this is from The Hill, and the headline here, Blinken, that's Abe Lincoln, Anthony Blinken, or the resurrection of Abe Lincoln, I don't know, targets Russia in major African policy speech. And it says here, Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Monday called out Russia for exploiting instability in Africa and committing abuses with impunity, and blamed Moscow for worsening food security on the continent over its war in Ukraine, which is hilarious because notoriously, who are the people that have stripped Africa of their resources and their future? Not Russia.
Not Russia. It's mostly us and China.
Us and China, the UN, the EU, yeah. The secretary's remarks were part of a wide-ranging speech on the Biden administration's strategy towards sub-Saharan Africa, delivered at the University of Pretoria in South Africa, amid rising competition between Washington and Moscow for influence on the continent. And that right there is kind of a called it moment. I guess it's been obvious to people paying attention, but the whole Ukraine thing, even COVID, appears to be just a ready, set, go. Who gets to control Africa and the modernization of Africa? And surprise.
And why, may you ask? Untapped potential.
Untapped potential, yeah.
It's the new frontier of the untapped potential in an economic sense.
Yes, and it really speaks to why in this country we've had the race wars and the division and all that kind of stuff, but we'll get to that in a moment. Still, Blinken emphasized that the U.S., quote, will not dictate Africa's choices. Neither should anyone else, end quote, but added that Washington is looking to African nations, quote, to defend the rules of the international system that they've done so much to shape. Quote, these include the right of every country to have its independence, its sovereignty, its territorial integrity respected, a principle at stake now in Ukraine, Blinken said. Quote, we believe that all nations should be able to stand up for the right of a country not to have its borders redrawn by force, for if we allow that principle to be violated anywhere, we weaken it everywhere. Ironic. Blinken's arrival in South Africa was part of a 3-country tour that will also comprise the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda. Many African nations have resisted taking a firm stance on Russia's invasion of Ukraine. At least 17 African nations, including South Africa, abstained in votes during the United Nations General Assembly condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Yeah. Did they go into why that is?
A little bit, yeah. Here, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, during trips last week in Egypt, Ethiopia, Uganda, and the Republic of Congo, praised African nations as acting responsibly and decried Western democracies' history of colonial rule on the continent.
Yeah, so that is interesting because as we've sort of been tracking, and I don't think no mainstream and even very few independent outlets are kind of doing a full breakdown, even though we've been doing it sort of piece by piece over the past few years, right, of the African takeover, because it does not suit any African country whatsoever right now to take a stand on Ukraine, because there is an ongoing financial war in Africa between China, the U.S., and some other places. The UN and Russia is a little bit involved as well. And so really, Africa is even currently colonialized by China, probably most heavily. Us, I would put in second, then UN and Russia right behind. They are still a continent highly colonialized. It just looks different than it did, hundreds of years ago. Now it looks like, loans that they'll never be able to pay back, resource contracts, things like this, that are really split up between the world's superpowers. And so taking a stand in this situation is sort of a nightmare for some of these African countries.
Yeah, and they didn't ask for any of it either, I don't think.
No.
This is something that's been hoisted upon them.
mommy and daddy are fighting when it comes to, the oppressive ruling powers that are currently in Africa, whether it's through corruption, through resource business deals, or through, the what do they call it? What was it? Oh my gosh, it's on the tip of my tongue. The
economic war, the economic
hitmanship. That's what it is. Thank you.
Let me continue here. There's a little bit more in this article, and then I'll piece some other things together. Blinken said the, quote, Kremlin-backed Wagner Group exploits instability to pillage resources and commit abuses with impunity. Hello, who's been doing that this whole time? Not just Kremlin-backed Wagner Group. In particular in Mali and the Central African Republic, where Human Rights Watch has accused the group of carrying out atrocities such as summary executions, torture, and killing of civilians. Quote, the United States recognizes that African countries face real security concerns and that countless communities are afflicted by the twin scourges of terrorism and violence. But the answer to those problems is not Wagner. It's not any other mercenary group, end quote, Blinken said, adding that the U.S. is focused on supporting strengthening democracies to combat instability. Quote, African countries can count on the United States to support these efforts, he said. Blinken also, pretty bold statement there. It's like, okay.
I bet they can.
I bet they can and have been. Really, you didn't help destroy the nation or the country at all, right? Continent. Sure. Blinken also blamed Russia for exacerbating poverty and hunger on the African continent over its invasion of Ukraine.
That's great.
And then it's a couple more things here. Blinken brought up World Bank. I like how Blinken quotes the World Bank as if that really, bolsters confidence in anybody reading or looking at this stuff.
He's a champ, man.
Blinken brought up World Bank estimates that Russia's invasion of Ukraine is likely to plunge 40 million more people into food insecurity, requiring humanitarian food assistance on top of 193 million people already dependent on international aid, adding that most of these people are in Africa. Quote, the U.S. is there for African countries in this unprecedented crisis because that's what partners do for each other and because helping Africans jumpstart a broad-based recovery and build resilience to weather future shocks, is vital to our shared prosperity.
And that goes into the exact playbook that we've seen the U.S., sort of execute on different levels to other countries in this similar situation, which just adds another benefit to provoking the Ukraine war, is that, you do create more instability in places like Africa, which will put them on the rocks. And, surprise, surprise, look who comes walking in the door to give you a nice big handshake and some very much needed aid. It's old Mr. America, who's got a big
Uncle
check
Sam
with your name on it. Yeah.
Hey, we'll help you out.
Yeah, it really is a beautiful execution of the economic hitman strategy, as well as the sort of Hegelian dialectic, the problem, reaction, solution.
Right.
Just so many benefits for the U.S. government to keep this war in Ukraine going.
Yep. So, the other outlets had this story. You had Yahoo News mirroring AFP, the headline, U.S. not trying to outdo world powers in Africa, says Blinken. They're very careful about hey, we're not trying to take over because we're woke. We're not taking over. Sure. We're partnering with them. We're helping them from a tough spot.
It's so funny. Just real quick to make a comment. There have been, I forget his name, but there have been a couple of leaders of African nations. I want to say that Ethiopia was one of them, but I could be wrong, and I don't want to say non-truths here. But there's been a number of them who have come out and specifically been like, hey, everybody, America is trying to trap us in debt, like they did to Venezuela. And so can somebody help us with this? We don't want to do this. I'm not going to take the aid. I'm here to, protect my people, protect my country, and taking money from America is not the way to do that. And then whoopsie daisies, he slips in the shower. Or like whoopsie daisies, there's a coup.
Right.
and things keep going on their way.
Yeah. Funny how that happens. Huh?
Yeah.
And part of the sort of move, the Afrofuturism thing has been kind of quietly brewing. I think part of the propaganda machine in the United States has been big on that. There's a Global Citizen article here with the headline, "Meet the Nigerian activist using technology as a powerful tool to fight poverty in America." And of course, it highlights a certain group here that and goes through some numbers and how, places like Netflix is really, helping get that narrative out there. But I think the big thing here behind this Blinken story is this here from Bloomberg, and the headline, "Nigeria to seek U.S. Exim loan for solar project with Sun Africa." Okay. Nigerian
loan.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah.
We're just so eager to make a big loan to Nigeria.
Yeah.
I think it's important to put the context in there. Nigeria has been an interesting player during the pandemic, where most of Africa denied vaccines and turned away shipments of vaccines from Biden, especially. Got him all kind of irked about it. Nigeria has been super pro-vaccine. They locked people out of their bank accounts for not being vaccinated. What was the other thing? They've just been a huge sort of player in implementing very Western reactions to the pandemic versus the rest of Africa.
Right. Yeah. So the article here states, Nigerian authorities will seek credit from the U.S. Export-Import Bank to fund a solar power project being developed by Sun Africa LLC, a renewable energy provider, according to the company. The unit of Urban Green Technologies LLC is developing solar power facilities for Nigeria's Niger Delta Power Holding Co. The project, which have passed through feasibility studies, technical analysis, and land permitting phases in the past 2 years, are due for a loan processing with the Export Credit Agency. Adam Cortez, chief executive officer of the U.S.-based Sun Africa, said in an email.
This is exactly how the economic hitman strategy works.
That's what I'm saying.
It's all, and this is one of the parts of the strategy that a lot of people don't point out, just because it's one of the least interesting parts about it, not because they don't know it. It's in the book, that it's all to benefit development construction companies.
Right.
So that's exactly how it works. You have economic hitmen go in, they convince the leaders of that nation that they can become a real first world beacon of light to their, national neighbors. They just need to improve their infrastructure, give electricity to, it's almost always electricity, by the way, too.
Yeah.
We need to give electricity to everybody. And here's what you're going to do. We're going to give you $1 billion from the United States government. Then you pay that $1 billion to this energy company. It's always a different company. Yeah. That's why I'm looking into Sun Africa right now, because whoever owns that company is definitely a part of this. And then, so they get the money. They give all the money away. Usually it's an American company. So it's just a way for the government to give money to an American company. Yeah. The country never actually gets to spend the money on what they want. And then that company comes in, does a bunch of stuff. Of course, it doesn't actually help the country as much as they were promised. There's always a year or two of this analysis where they send engineers and civics people to come over and write reports. Yeah. Those are the actual economic hitmen. They write these reports to convince the government that they should take this huge loan from the U.S. And then, long story short, they can never pay back this loan. And then the U.S. or American companies get to come in and have rights to all of their resources and totally exploit the country and ruin the lives of its people even further. Yeah. It's really interesting to be watching this happen in real time.
Yeah. Nigerian finance ministry is expected within the next 60 days to send, quote, final commitment application to Exim for the facility, after which the lender will conduct due diligence on the projects before the loan is finalized, Cortez said, refuting an earlier report by a Nigerian newspaper that the firm had agreed to lend $1.5 billion for the project, which I'm sure that will happen. And somebody just spilled the beans early. Authorities in Africa's largest economy plan to integrate solar into their energy mix to boost supply, as poor maintenance and insufficient investment in the transmission network have resulted in only about a third of the country's installed capacity being dispatched by the grid daily. That's just about a fraction of what's needed in the nation of more than 200 million people, making a strong case for improved public and private investments in alternative energy sources. And we'll get to some of the energy, or not the climate bill stuff, because it's all intertwined in this as well.
And we've been tracking this social engineering aspect of Afrofuturism, which you sort of made the call that first comes the social engineering, Afrofuturism, get everybody all pumped up on helping Africa, and that's what sort of pulls the blinders down, or casts a veil upon the public's eyes. And so when you hear, we're going to give them $1 billion and give them electricity, everybody goes, yay, Africa's the future. When really it's just sort of mind control for the sort of exploitation of a third world country with the approval of the American public.
Right. It's just the next location to be targeted. I just have this article from Yahoo Finance mirroring Bloomberg, and the headline, "The U.S.-led drive to isolate Russia and China is falling short." And I'm not going to read the article. I'm just I wanted to bring it because there's a map of the world, and it's a G20 divided. Only half the bloc have imposed penalties on Russia for invading Ukraine. And there's a map where part of it is red. The red has sanctioned Russia. The blue hasn't sanctioned Russia. But there's a large portion that hasn't done either, which is Africa. It's almost like they're that's the battleground. It's Africa and Antarctica. Those are the two continents left to be conquered.
The two economic frontiers.
Yeah. And just as a reminder, we brought this report several months ago. This was on The Guardian, and the headline was, "By 2050, a quarter of the world's population will be African. This will shape our future." And again, think about that. A quarter of the world's entire population will be in Africa, and Nigeria being 200 plus million, which is a good number, because
I did not know it was that big. That's approaching the size of America. Right.
And that's what I'm saying. And 200 million compared to what 330 million of America right now, maybe a little more. It's just the perfect place. America, it's a little bit smaller than America, very ripe for all kinds of innovation and bringing people up to speed.
Very friendly governments,
right.
Very, very controllable puppets in the government, as was sort of proven through their COVID actions. Yeah,
and I lost the article here. I had so many open, but there was one about the head of Nigeria green lighting some assets being sold, or was it being bought or sold? Oh, I should have brought it. Basically making a deal with the UK.
Is it the one that's in here?
I don't know if it's in here. Did I lose it? I think I lost it.
There's one on the dock here.
Yeah, there's a lot on the dock. I think I didn't put it in there for some reason. But yeah, basically it was that they were selling off some of their assets for 1.5 billion, and that just happens to be the number that leaked. Being given to them by the U.S.
Oh, right. They're selling off some of their coastal assets.
Coastal assets, right. To the UK, which, the UK. All right. So sell them the $1.5 billion. And so there's a lot of movement going on. And, you think about it, again, it really helps connect the dots with the race wars in America, with martyrs, like black martyrs in America, or black heroes that are being constructed here. And there's always a political slant to it. The Wakanda propaganda and creating that martyr too. What's his name? Passed away from cancer. Right. The Black Panther passed away.
Yeah, the guy who played Black Panther.
I forget his name.
There's also been a big movement. So have you heard about the Back to Africa movement?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so it's this idea that African Americans, their sort of highest goal should be to go back to Africa, get out of America, go back to Africa, which sounds super racist. Like, that sounds like a super racist thing.
You know what it sounds kind of like?
But it's
go ahead. Finish your thought.
Rastafarianism?
No. I was going to say Israel and
similar.
Bringing the Jews back to Israel.
Similar idea. Yeah. Right. But it's supposed to be like a sort of racial justice thing. Like it's a left idea. And it's really interesting to see a lot of the social justice people on Twitter and such call it out. They're like, who is doing this Back to Africa movement? This is racist. This is not cool. Like, I don't know. We're not just going to run away from America. But it's being sort of supported by this. Yes, go back to the homeland and build it up and make it's Afrofuturism is what it is. It's the whole concept behind Afrofuturism, or it's the end goal rather. And there's a lot of sort of black activists who are identifying this as some sort of psyop. And some of them even use that word psyop. Like, why are you trying to get us to leave America? And why are you trying to get us to go back to Africa? Why are you trying to get the countries that our ancestors came from in debt to America? This is a widespread thing. And once again, it's using the sort of social conditioning, social engineering of the I don't know if it's linked to the like critical race theory or whatever, but it's just kind of in the milieu of social justice. But it's obviously created and injected into the minds of the population to further the economic takeover and colonization of Africa. And some people are seeing through it, but you see policy being made by those like Nancy Pelosi and others who are so sort of panicked, not even panicked. Again, I gotta say, I think they're shrewd. I think they're shrewd enough to know that they can look like good social justice warriors and totally exploit the continent of Africa at the same time, and do the jobs that they're being paid to do, apparently. Yeah.
And we'll keep tabs on this stuff because it is interesting. It's happening quickly. It's cultural. And of course, I'm sure we'll get banned for this too at some point because we will be contributing to some kind of black Holocaust or something.
Yeah, even though I literally explicitly just sort of took the side of some black social justice warriors.
Yeah.
What was the last part of that? I don't remember, but yeah, okay. No, the Afrofuturism grand diabolical scheme, again, our sort of woke governments like to pay lip service to, reparations and talking about how colonization is a scourge and a scar on American history. And they do the exact same thing, just with fancier, methods this time. And they can paint it in the veneer of social justice. And it's really sick, but that's how it works. That's how it works, folks. It works on all different levels of society and different agendas, but it does not differ in result than it did, hundreds of years ago.